17 minutes past 2. Now, for the next half an hour or so, you may just want to listen, and I really wouldn't have a go at you for that, because I have a very interesting gentleman with us. His name is Shoaib Sultan Khan, and he is the chairman of an NGO called the Rural Support Programs Network. Mr. Khan, welcome to the BBC Asia Network.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you explain to our listeners what the Rural Support Programs Network does? What does it hope to achieve?
Well, it all began in December 1982 when I was invited by a Geneva-based NGO, the Aga Khan Rural Support, the Aga Khan Foundation, and they asked me that if I would be willing to initiate a program in the northern areas of Pakistan. And this is the most difficult mountainous area. You might have heard of K2 and Nanga Parbat.
Yes,
these are all these mountains.
Yes.
Himalayas, Karakoram, Hindu Kush, Kunlung,
Beautiful
all these join there.
Pakistan,
though. Yes, it is. So this is where they wanted this program, and there were about 1 million inhabitants in that area. And they wanted an economic program which should double the income of the people in 10 years.
Okay. Right.
I was, of course, as I was telling you, in the jungles of Mahaveli at System H in Galneva.
Wow, okay.
When they approached me.
You were in Sri Lanka at that point?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was as a UNICEF social development consultant.
How do you set about looking at 1 million people and thinking, how am I going to double your income in 10 years? I mean, this is making my head explode, the very idea. I mean, it's on such a huge scale, with so many problems, so many barriers, whether it be education, infrastructure, health. How do you do this?
Well, I had the pleasure and privilege of meeting a real visionary in my earlier incarnation as a civil servant in Pakistan, and what Bangladesh used to be East Pakistan.
Yes.
There was this gentleman called Dr. Hamid Khan, and he was implementing a program there. And he said that, look, if you want to improve the lot of the rural poor, then there is a distillation of the experience of the world over almost 15, 20 decades. And it is that development theory, the development principles which really, if implemented in letter and spirit, then they make a difference. And you'll be surprised that these principles were from 19th century Europe by a man called Raiffeisen.
What are these principles?
Three simple principles: that individually rural poor are helpless, but if they get organized, then it's a question of empowering them.
Right, okay.
And secondly, that capital is power. Unless they try to and agree to generate capital through a process of savings, however poor they may be, they would never be able to get the kind of capital that they need.
So rather than subsistence living, yes, which is living hand to mouth, effectively,
absolutely,
you have to learn to compartmentalize your money and save for a rainy day and use that money to invest in new ideas and new equipment, and you have to think like an entrepreneur, do you?
Because the whole assumption and the basis of this is that there is tremendous potential in people, even the poorest of the poor.
Well, that's the saddest thing about it, isn't it?
You know, I mean, I don't know, Michelangelo, when people used to praise his David, he would say, I have done nothing. David was there in the marble. I simply removed the superfluous material. This is exactly what applies here to the poor. There is tremendous potential in them. All that is needed is how to remove the obstacles which are preventing from unleashing that potential. And that unleashing happens. It cannot happen on an individual basis.
But where do you start? on that process? Because of course there's a lack of education, there's a lack of perhaps political willpower.
You don't go with a preconceived notion. You go to the poor. I mean, for example, when I go to a village, and now in 3 weeks' time, it will be 60th year of my working life. For the last 30 years, I've been doing nothing but going to villages in Pakistan and South Asia and mostly India. I must have gone to 7,000-8,000 villages by now.
To help.
Interacted with about nearly 500,000 or so men and women. And when I go to them and they expect that I have brought something, and of course the first program that I was doing with Shoaib Sultan Khan, one of the richest person in the world, they thought, well, I must be loaded with money and I'll come and say, all right, tell me what your problems are and what you need, and here it is, and I'll do it. And I'll go and say to them that, look, I'm not prepared to, neither I'm capable of doing anything if you tell me what your problems are and why these should not be done, and what, I mean, I said that the government is there and the others are there, you can go and tell them that. I have simply come with a methodology of development, which I can tell you those countries which were poor, and I quoted them, Germany, Japan and all those countries, they were as poor as you are today.
In the post-war period?
Yes. Not in the post-war, I mean, go 100 years back.
I see, right.
You read Dickens and you see what was England.
Absolutely.
So, how have they come out of that? And I said, it is that methodology, whether you talk of Raiffeisen, you talk of Rothschild pioneers, you talk of these people, and they would say, all right, then, I said, it is a development partnership that I want to offer you. Development partnership has these three obligations on you. Get organized, identify a leader from amongst yourself, generate your own capital through the process of savings, and what is most important, unleash the potential that you have. That is your human resource development.
Okay, we've got a few callers that have come in. 08459 440 445 is the number. What we're talking about necessarily is not charity, because we're talking about an NGO, a Rural Support Programs Network, which, as you've just heard Mr. Khan talk about, is very much about empowering poor people. But I'd like to know from you, what makes you, listening to the BBC Asia Network this afternoon, want to give to charity? And perhaps if you don't, why don't you? Sobia is in Scotland. Hello, Sobia.
Hello, Nihal.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Now, you worked for an NGO in Pakistan, is that right?
Yes, I did. I used to work for an American NGO, so I was there when the flood hit, so I was down in Tucker for about 3 weeks at a stretch.
Wow, okay. And what difference do you think the NGO made?
No, it was a huge difference, because obviously, first of all, we distributed NFI kits. They are non-food item kits, because, you know, villages upon villages were just washed away.
Yes.
There was nothing there.
So this is basic survival?
Yeah, basic survival,
right.
And of course water, hygiene, tablets, things like that. And then after that it was the building of the shelters, so that at least they had something.
Right.
But my basic point, what I wanted to make was that after seeing that, and there were times when we used to come back, and like the gentleman just said, when you go there are like thousands of people who are just standing, and they see you come in a car and they think they're going to give us God knows what. And initially, of course, that's not what happens. We have to go in and do assessments. And there were so many times when colleagues of mine used to just come back to the main city and just sit and cry, because there was nothing initially that we could give them. And it was really, I think, one of the most eye-opening, depressing periods of my work, that you come back and you feel helpless. And I suppose in turn to that, then I used to call back home here in Scotland, and I used to tell Mum and the rest of my family, look, people really need your help. But you know what the sticking point was? People mistrust charities, especially Pakistan's charities and the government funds, so much that people weren't willing to give. So what I saw personally was that a lot of people, even in the country, and Asians, especially British Asians, give a lot. I saw that in the earthquake as well.
Yes.
But this time the giving was of a different nature. They weren't giving to charities, and they weren't giving definitely to the government. What they were doing is they were going through their own channels. So you had people hiring out big vans, hiring out trucks, loading water, loading stuff themselves, going to places and distributing. So then they had the surety that the money that they were giving was actually going to the people who needed it.
That's interesting.
That was one of the fundamental differences between the earthquake and the flood. I commend him that he's been to so many villages, but the obstacles that we faced, a 10-year program, I'm just a little bit apprehensive that because there's so many cultural issues. Then you've got feudalism, then you've got the government.
Well, Sophia, just stop me there for a second. I mean, Mr. Khan, these were points I was going to raise as well, is that in many ways, politicians, it suits them to keep poor people poor and ignorant. Exactly. Because once they are poor and ignorant, they can control them a lot easier, couldn't they? I mean, the feudal system, as it were, where landowners essentially tell people how to vote and how to think. Now, how easy is it to break that chain? And did you attempt to?
Well, Nihal, there are perceptions and perceptions.
And there are realities.
And there are realities. And the main thing is that you should go to the field. I mean, Sophia had one experience. I mean, there are other experiences also. And she's talking about emergencies. I was talking about development.
Yes.
I mean, the same area she's talking about, for example, 3 years ago, I went to the Chief Minister, Qaim Ali Shah, and I narrated what has been achieved in northern areas of Pakistan and in Andhra Pradesh, where there are 10 million women organized now with 50 million really population. And he said, all right, I'll give you these two districts, Kashmir, Kandkot and Shikarpur. And from the Indian experience, I decided that we would only work with women. In 16 months, almost 200,000 women got organized. And then floods came. Of course, the magnitude of the flood was such that this Sindh Rural Support Organization with which I was associated, I mean, it had to sort of get resources to provide food, to provide non-food utensils and other things to almost 2-3 million people, and in a very short time. We had to, in rehabilitation, there were 43 villages we had to be rehabilitated.
Can you engineer development? And I think this is what Selby is getting at. Can you engineer development in spite of government? Or do you have to have the government on side?
Government are also individuals.
Yes, a human being.
I mean, find one chief minister, he says, yes, of course, I'll do it. I go to others and they are not interested. So it's a question of opportunity. I mean, I went to India and there I found that from Sonia Gandhi to Rahul Gandhi to Chandrababu Naidu to Reddy, everybody said, oh yes, of course, this is what we'll do, and this is how it happened. So,
and did they follow through?
Of course. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
The words became deeds.
Yes. And I mean, in Pakistan...
So don't be so cynical, Sobia.
Unfortunately...
No, I'm not cynical. I'm not cynical, but it's just an apprehension.
Experience.
No, I mean, basically, you see, I'm...
So people have this perception to an extent because people have given and they've not seen output. So
yes.
That she's right.
Right, Sobia.
That Sobia's right. I mean, because, of course, there has been so many malpractices and other things that obviously... I mean, we were being asked, I mean, much of the things which we got when we were asked that which are the best. But for example, I mean, look at our outreach. I mean, we have about 280,000 community organizations with nearly 4.6 million households in Pakistan.
In Pakistan, right. Okay.
Which is almost 30 million people.
Yes.
Now,
how would you say that they have been practically helped, those people in those houses?
I mean, for example, this earthquake, when the earthquake came, these two organizations, the Rural Support Program Network Organization, the National Rural Support Program and the Sarhad Rural Support Program. They almost rehabilitated 122,000 households out of 500,000.
What define rehabilitate? What do you mean by rehabilitate?
Construction of the sort of earthquake-resistant houses.
Right. Okay.
Providing them the
infrastructure
relief in the beginning, and then of course training them and all that kind of thing.
Right. And these were NGOs.
But it was not done by. Let me clarify one thing. NGOs can only do up to a certain point, but NGOs like us, I mean, our main focus is on fostering institutions of the people.
Right.
I was telling you about organization. The basic unit is the community organization. Once in a village, when there are maybe 10, 15 community organizations, they form a village organization. And now they've started forming at a union level local support organization. In India, they did the same thing. They started with a self-help group of 15 women, then federated at the village level as a village organization, and now they are at Mandal Samakhya, and then going to the Zilla.
Okay.
So these institutions of the people really, I mean, in our experience in emergencies and floods, they are the ones who really do the maximum work, and they are the ones who are the most transparent and honest. But if you go to individuals or to individual NGOs, then of course you can't be very sure.
Okay, Sabir, thank you very much. Amir, good afternoon, Amir.
Good afternoon.
What would you like to say, sir?
Well, it was interesting to hear large projects, and it's great people are doing all that work. Where I came from was that I saw a flood of emotion and a outpouring of donations, but only to individuals. They were not ready to support organizations, NGOs, or the government funding program. And that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, because I didn't expect that. When the floods came, I was due to go on a family holiday, and 3-4 days before the holiday, I was on a party where they raised some money, and I thought, I'm going there, I should try to raise some money as well. So I sent out a text message to my friend group, and even my electrician said, can you take £20 from me? And this is £20 from my cousin, and there's another one. And out of that text message that I sent, I raised $3,500.
Wow! Wow, that's amazing.
In 2 days, because I was due to fly in 2 days. And people came to my house.
So you took, sorry to interrupt you, Amir, but you took that £3,500 cash to Pakistan with you,
yes,
and then you figured out while you were on the ground how best to spend it.
Right. And then, on the way, when I understood that I've got this money now, I started making contacts with who are the people who are working on the ground, and I found an organization by students. And these are students in high caliber institutions. Some of them were in LUMS, if you have heard of the name, in Lahore. The Lahore University of Management Sciences, one of the top universities there. Some of them were doctors from King Edward, Allama Iqbal. And so they were students of high caliber institutions who...
And you'd never met any of these individuals before?
I have never met them. I just found them on Facebook.
Wow. Okay. So you had no idea how legitimate or not they were?
I had no idea. So I went and met them, and these were boys, really, and girls who were packing their trucks and taking it to the affected areas themselves. So they were not hiring any support. They were just packing things themselves. And I asked them, what do you need? And they said, we need shoes, we need blankets, we need water containers, and that's what we need. So it didn't stop there. I'll tell you, Nawal. It was amazing. So I said, right, I've got £3,000. I'll buy £1,000 of shoes, £1,000 of blankets, and £1,000 worth of water containers. Right. So what happens? I go to a shoe factory, and I said, well, I'm looking for shoes, and why are you looking for them? And I'm doing this. Okay, fine. So this person takes me around, shows me different types of shoes, and says, I think these are best for you. And then he says, right, you need about 100,000. I'll pay you. It's about £1 a shoe. So he says, these are 1,000 pairs for you. And I said, right, so how do I pay you? I says, I don't want any money, take it.
Wow. Okay, so essentially, I mean, just to cut a long story short, it's direct action, effectively direct action.
That they saw that somebody is actually doing it themselves, and they just gave the money to me. So that 3,000 that I raised, in effect, became 5,000 by the end. So people just the blanket.
I mean, sorry to interrupt you again, my friend, but essentially, what you're encouraging British Asians to do is, if you see this issue, you can very easily, very directly deal with it yourself.
Oh yes.
Okay, Amir, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for that. Suk in Dartford, good afternoon.
Hi, Nihal.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine, and I've just come back from India.
Right.
And you do see loads of poverty there.
Yes.
And I just feel as though the people that live there, they seem to turn a blind eye. That's how I felt. And when you see them, I was spending so much money, and then I felt guilty for spending so much money when people out there don't have as much as yourself.
Were you ever told, Suk, don't give money to these people, they're gangs, they're not real, you know, the kids are not real, they're you know, they're in a gang, yada yada yada. Were you ever told any of that?
Yeah, he was like, told, if you give it to one, you're going to get another 20 coming up to your car, you know, just get in the car, shut the door and go. And, you know, you just think, well, no, I think I can do a lot more than that. You know, we do raise loads of money here in England. We always do charity events, raise money for charity. Never seem to do it to send it to India, because I always feel as though the money's not going to get to the people that need it the most. So that's the one thing in the back of my mind that worries me.
Well, so sorry to interrupt you, Suk, because I just want to bring Mr. Khan in at this point. This is such a big problem. I mean, you're talking about in India alone, estimates 700 million people living on $2 or less a day in India. The poverty problem, I mean, Suk, where were you when you saw all these beggars? Were you in the Punjab? Were you in Bombay?
Yeah, I was in the Punjab.
Right, in the Punjab, seeing this kind of poverty. I mean, 250,000 people, this is a drop in the ocean, isn't it? I mean, obviously I understand that you've got to start somewhere. How many people do you think these programs have brought out of poverty in the last 10 years?
Well, in 1995, when UN asked me to initiate the South Asia Poverty Alleviation Program, and one of the countries was India, and I know that the file went right up to Mr. Narasimha Rao, the Prime Minister, that should a Pakistani be let loose in the rural areas. And he said, why not? Because he's coming with a UN hat. And let him start from my district, Kurnool. So I was sent to Kurnool. And as the lady was saying, I mean, I was really shocked. Women earning 5 rupees a day, weeding the fields of the zamindars.
Backbreaking work.
Yes. But those same principles which I mentioned to you in the beginning, the principles of development, once they got organized, once they started generating their own capital through savings, once they improved and unleashed the potential they have. I was there. Listen to me now. Yeah. I was there. I mean, within these 12 years and now they're almost 15 years, 10 million such women have come out of poverty. They are now accessing credit from commercial banks, and of course the government has been very sort of generous in that it reimburses. This is why there was this big MFI crisis there. It reimburses the interest to the bank if it is paid on time. And those very women which were earning 5 rupees, when I go to their houses now, they have all facilities that I can imagine of. And they can even access 100,000, 200,000 rupees through these organizations from So, as you said, there are almost 450 to 500 million people in India.
Yes.
And I'm talking about 50 million. But now Sonia Gandhi had come up with a program called National Rural Livelihood Mission, where she has put in $7.5 billion of government money and adopted the same approach where institutions of the people are
It's a
created.
huge amount of money, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is, but it has to reach 315 million people. And
Sorry, will this reach?
that's the killer question that
Will
Sukha
this
just
reach?
asked.
well, if it could reach 50 million in Andhra, it could also. I mean, if they adopt the same methodology, which they are, because these are the same
But
team.
corruption is endemic.
No, but this is the
Exactly.
same team from Andhra Pradesh which has been brought to Delhi.
Right.
I mean, I was there last month. I was there. I went to
How do you account for that money? I mean, $3.5 billion from central government.
$7.5
Sorry,
billion.
$7.5 billion. Good grief,
in 5 years.
$7.5 billion in 5 years ends up where? I mean, colossal amount. I mean, these are money that
Yeah,
took to
that's
infrastructure.
what I'm saying. That unless you see how it is done,
Yeah.
once you get the communities organized, then these small sums of money basically flow through them.
Give me an example of how some of that money is used then. $7.5 billion. Suk, as indeed I'm sure many listeners will be thinking, well, it all ends up in the pocket of some panchayat,
I
you know,
think
some
there
local
are
politician.
two, because obviously, I mean, I don't blame them, because obviously they go and they see
Well, look
so
at Anna
much-
Hazare.
so
I
much
mean,
poverty,
yes.
and so much all these
And
things.
corruption, yeah.
But there are these things which are also coming up. I mean, when I go to Andhra, I mean, and I compare it with 1995 when I was there, I mean, I just can't believe what transformation has taken place. Then,
Is this committed money, or actual money?
it's actual money. It's from the budget. It's,
We don't see any improvements anywhere.
well, obviously you can't see very much, because you have to go to those areas where this thing
When
has
you
been
have to
done.
go in 1995 and then go in 2005 and then go in
No, not that.
2012.
Go to the area where this work has been done, and then you will see what changes it has brought about. I mean, there are almost 1,100 mandals in Andhra Pradesh. There are about 110 blocks in UP where Rajiv Gandhi Trust is working. So you have to go to those places and talk to the
Sorry.
people.
Go on,
Is
Suk.
it all on just paper? That's how you all see it? Or have people physically gone to these places to see that improvements have been done?
Well, Mr.
Everything's
Khan has,
fine
yeah.
on paper.
Well, at least I have gone and seen.
Yes,
I've been
Mr.
going there
Khan
now
has.
for the last 15 years.
I mean, this is the thing, and Suk kind of identifies this cynicism that exists here in the UK and even in India. I mean, the Anna Hazare movement being part of that money that is pledged
No,
never
that's
gets
also
to the people.
Nehal, that's also necessary to keep the government on its toes.
Right.
But there's a lot of good work. The Queen, in one of her speeches, I don't remember which year it was, she said that in the olden days, no news was good news. Nowadays, good news is no news. So unfortunately, none of them
Right.
are prepared to hear.
Well, that is a good point, isn't it? So we're always told about the corruption case, and if you watch NDTV like I do, it seems to be like a daily thing. But what we aren't is absolutely, as Mr. Khan points out, good news is no news. No one wants to sell the good news. But Suk, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Abbas has said one of the musts in Islam in Qums, which requires me to give 20% of my year's savings to the poor. I moved to the UK from a rural part of Bihar about 12 years back, and we always send our money back home to my granddad to distribute. A few £100 makes a hell of a difference to the poor families there. Musina said, as Muslims, my husband and I give zakat money to Indian villages. We recently had a huge clear out in our house and sold some items in a car boot sale. All the money we raise will be sent over to people who really need it. People who live in the village where my husband was born. I know this money will go to the people who need it most, as I trust my father-in-law who visits there regularly to take the money straight to the needy. Mr. Khan, there is a problem, is there not, with the patriarchal society of patriarchal nature of rural life in India, where even when women do try and save money, in some instances, whether it be alcohol or whether it be drugs, the men take that money from them. There is also, of course, female feticide that goes on in India. How does a woman empower herself in the face of such?
Let me tell you a story.
Please.
This is the story of Pandora. You see, once the women got organized in one village, I'm just giving you one example, and they decided that there would be no alcohol in the village. And a husband of one of the members had the shop, and of course it was probably a illegal shop or whatever it was, and they said, no way, you have to stop that.
So the women got together and made this decision?
Yes. And there are hundreds of there wherever they're organized. I'm telling you that once they get organized, how empowered they get. The policeman who used to, under whose patronage this man used to sell, he came for his commission, and he said, okay, well, now this has been stopped. He said, I don't know whether you have the business or you don't, you better pay me. And hauled him up and took him to the lockup. But these women got on a tractor, went to the deputy superintendent of police, took him to the police station, got him released. So,
the power.
It's a question of empowerment. Now,
wow.
in Andhra, there are 10 million women.
So you don't have to be a victim.
They are such a great power that no government can ignore them. And that's what it is. And you see, basically, charity, for example, in Pakistan, we did a survey. 70 billion rupees are given in charity by people.
From globally, the diaspora?
No, not diaspora, just the local people.
Within Pakistan?
Within Pakistan. But this is all as was being described by people locally, individuals.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong, it should continue. I am talking of a development program where I'm trying to basically pressurize and persuade governments that the resources that you have, you must spend on sustainable development.
How do you persuade them, and Ajay and Leicester's waiting on the line, Ajay, we'll come to you in a minute, how do you persuade a government that it is in their own self-interest to help the poor?
Nihal, you have to demonstrate. When for 12 years I worked with the Aga Khan Foundation and the World Bank, the Aga Khan Foundation asked the World Bank to assess this program. And they came after every 5 years. At the end of 10 years, they said that in real terms, the income of these 1 million people had more than doubled. Now, no government could ignore this demonstration. Then they started saying, well, why can't we do? For example, I got a Max Essay Award in 1992, which came on CNN and all these. And the Prime Minister was probably looking at it and what. And he said, this network has come this way. So we got the National Rural Support Program because of that, because government said, all right. The only thing was that they wanted that way I should become part of the government. I said, no, I have remained out of government. If you want to do this, because social mobilization, empowering people, governments will not do. It has to be done by a support organization, but it has to have the credibility and the leverage to get the resources from outside.
So I suppose, going back to an earlier question, if governments won't do it, if they won't get involved in the empowerment process...
No, I'm not saying they won't get involved. I'm saying that they are incapable of empowering, so they have to use a conduit which really has the capability to empower, but they are prepared to give the resources to this.
Okay, so they're incapable of on-the-ground empowerment. They are clearly capable in terms of the finance, so they can provide the money, but they can't provide the...
You see, because if you look at the setup of the government ministries and departments, it doesn't figure anywhere that you empower people. Their approach is very simple. Go with the blueprint, go with the resources, do it. And they can't do it. They don't have that many extension agents, they don't have so many people. But here in Andhra, who have done it? These 700,000 community organizations.
They've done it. Right.
They did it.
Right.
It's the people.
Funded by
the government of Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah.
They borrowed money from the World Bank.
Right.
I didn't mind.
Well, that's fine. That's actually fine, as long as it's making a difference.
For example, in northern areas, Pakistan, it was the Aga Khan Foundation. Even Mrs. Thatcher gave me £5 million.
Wow. Okay.
For the Chitral program.
Got some money out of Mrs. Thatcher. That's an achievement in itself. Let's find out what's coming up on the Drive Show with Noreen Khan. Hello, Noreen.
Hi, Nihal. We've got a big show lined up.
I know.
Today.
You've got a very special guest, haven't you?
We have, yes. We've got Shoaib Boss in the studio, live in the studio for Khan Dance Got Talent. So if anyone listening in would like to take part today, just drop us an email with your details, noreen@bbc.co.uk, and we're giving listeners another chance to take part in the Shah Rukh Khan competition. So if you missed out this morning on Tommy's or RuPaul's show, stay tuned. I'll be giving out the all-important qualifying question just after 3:30. Then you can enter, and I will keep my fingers crossed that you will be taking part in the competition quiz after 4 o'clock.
Result. Have a good one.
Oh, and also, Nihal,
Yes?
you'll like this. I'm going to be playing some Sri Lankan bile music on the show today.
It's called Bile, darling.
Bile, sorry.
Yes.
That's it.
Bile is something that your liver produces. I think it's like a poison of some kind, I think.
Our Hot 5 girl, Kalpana Bradhu, as you know, she's half Sri Lankan, so she brought some Mauritian music to the show yesterday, and today some Bile, so we're looking forward to playing that.
It's cool, man. It's like Sinhalese music mixed with calypso, and it's party music all day long. Party music all day long.
Oh, and I'm glad you liked my trail.
Yes. Gutted I haven't got my own advert. Like I said, listen to Nihal, have an argument. There you go. Alright, have a great show. Thanks, Noreen. Bye. Ajay in Leicester, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nihal.
How are you, my friend?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you.
What do you think about our attitude towards giving?
Yeah, on that topic as well, I think the guest you have in the studio...
Mr. Khan, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Khan, is doing a sterling job, but that's on a very large scale. And
but it starts on a small scale. That's the point, isn't it, Ajay?
Yeah, but I mean, he's talking about meeting Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, and meeting all these bigwigs and getting support from the World Bank and all that.
But the principle is a simple one, Ajay, isn't it? Empowerment is something that you could do by sitting next to a woman and saying you don't have to put up with this.
Absolutely correct, and that's where I wanted to come in. Say that even on an individual basis, I think there needs to be some sort of a change in our attitude as well. There seems to be an inertia in most of us that we don't know where to start, what to do, even if we want to do something. And I just want to say that even if you have friends and relatives back home in India, Pakistan, wherever, you could sort of push them. You could finance things. Like we, my wife and myself, we have a project in a school in Punjab, which is actually a school run by the government for very poor children, and we supply milk in the morning for all the kids there. There's only about 52 children in the school. So I mean, and then
how much does that cost?
That varies. Funnily enough, the number of children in the school has risen from about 40 to about 52 now in the last 6 months or so. But it depends on how many liters of milk has been used. Roughly about 10,000 rupees a month. Okay. Is what we are paying for that. We also, through our...
What is that, about £150? £125?
About that, yeah. About that much, yeah. And we identify women who are, in a distressful situation where they might have lost their livelihood or are struggling to make ends meet, especially if they have children, and especially if they have daughters, and if they're single women or, widows or whatever. And then we try and help them to get back on their feet. So we've got 4 women like this. And basically just identifying what would work for them. So, for example, for one woman, we've helped her set up a tea stall by the roadside. And that cost us nothing really, about 9,000 rupees to set it all up. And that actually meant that her daughter, who was going to a charitable school, which had a very, very nominal fee, she was thinking of pulling her daughter out of the school. Now the daughter is going to school, and she's got livelihood. So little things like this, even individuals like us sitting here can do. And that is what I wanted to convey through you.
The scale of the problem shouldn't put you off getting involved.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Ajay Lester, thank you very much indeed for that. Amisha has asked, can Mr. Shoaib Sultan Khan provide information on how we can contribute, not through the means of donations only, to initiate such programs in India? Is there any support available if I wanted to initiate such a program in India?
So Nihal, I mean, as you very rightly put it, that basically, of course, we are interested in scale, because unless you go to scale, how are you going to really tackle the problems that these two countries face, India and Pakistan, in terms of poverty? But as the gentleman just spoke to you, I mean, for example, look at Pakistan. It has about 5,665 rural union councils.
Okay.
Each union council is about 3,000 households.
Right, okay.
And if we do a poverty scorecard, which we have done, we just, before we go, we just try to find out that who are the people whom you find about, basically about 33-34% which are below the poverty line, but there are another 20-25% above that they are vulnerable.
Right,
if you don't help them. So we are talking about 55% of the people.
Okay.
And all kinds. For example, one of the programs that people came up, and this was their idea, community schools. There was a charity here in London-based Learning for Life. My daughter who lives here, she was associated with that, and the Learning for Life came and said that, what can we do? And all that they required was basically £1,000 endowment. And they said, we'll run this school. There are about 5,000 of these schools now in
so they would take £1,000,
put it into, in those days, they were getting 18% interest on that. So it was from their money that they identified a local person, educated person, retired person who was prepared to, and especially, the condition was that 50% should be girls. So
for £1,000,
yes,
which is a relatively small amount of money.
For example, now we have got these local support organizations, because basically we have now, as I mentioned, 280,000 community organizations. So instead of going to anybody else, go to the community directly. I mean, we have prepared that basically platform where you don't even have to go to an NGO. You go directly to these, as I call, institutions of the people, both in India and Pakistan. In India, from Mandal, you come down to the village organization, which is one village, and from the village organization you come to a self-help group, which is only 15 women. And I mean, this individual charity can really directly go to them by direct interaction with them, and this is what basically has in terms of an availability of a receiving mechanism, because the main thing with people sitting here is that how are we going to give? Is it going to reach them or not?
Yes, absolutely.
If you go through these institutions of the people instead of NGOs,
it will get directly to them.
We are an NGO, but we are an institution for the people.
Right.
But basically what we have achieved is these institutions of the people.
Okay, Mr. Khan, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Nihal.